I'm going to begin again. Ignoring doctors' warnings, businessmen make big boasts. To increase tourism, they fill the city with ghosts. The slave market then is now our finest hotel. Visit its bar. Sazerac's swill the city with ghosts. First a roustabout, then a roughneck, he came upstream for grunt work after they oil spilled the city with ghosts. Gothic novels stack behind every shutter. We don't bury the dead, no room. Books thrill the city with ghosts. A runaway from Podunk, she hitched rides, blue truckers. She thought she would make her way until the city with ghosts. We lurk behind curtains. Some of us catch new lovers. Perfect strangers, Netflix and chill the city with ghosts. Can't you see that there is nothing to see here? You have imagined all the deaths. They shill the city with ghosts. After Katrina, moving to Beaumont, they both tried to forget. Their thoughts wander still, the city with ghosts. Death is expensive, Miss Stella, shouted the tourists. Their conference canceled. They bill the city with ghosts. We dance away from funerals, for the dead abide here always. Our last rites instill the city with ghosts. The ones who want parades now say heat kills the virus, but July ferments and grills the city with ghosts. Babsons survive plagues, and thus will I. I kill some rats. I kill roaches. No one can kill the city with ghosts. I had the misfortune of hearing bad news about a friend who was rushed to the hospital. And I wrote a poem about that. It's called Text Message with Photo. When I read where you were, I exhaled too quickly. I ran off to the sink. I leaped down. I rose up. I ran off to the food in the back and I scarfed down some sweets. Now I can't eat a thing and I keep staring at my green phone, queasy like my deep gut, at your face, in the mask, in the bed, in the white, cloistered room, and I think I'll go nuts if the news you receive lets you know it's the end. It's the end. I have been writing some poems about imagining myself, like perhaps some of you have wanted to retreat from Trump's America. That may be the case for some of you. And I have been writing for the last 6 months of what I hope will be my 4th collection that I have a working title for called The Bunker Book. And the connective tissue of it are a bunch of vignettes that resemble a medieval book of hours. And I imagine a woman who lives in New Orleans but has found herself effectively a bunker in town, who has retreated like they did during plague times in the medieval era. And one book that was written to entertain a duke during the medieval era was Les Riches Heures du Duc Berry. And so there was this whole plague literature that existed from that time. So this is a commentary at once on medieval things, on my fantasy of retreating with a bunch of medieval manuscripts and all the wine at Galatoire's into some kind of bunker to wait out until, you know, we get results from the 2020 election. And also the time we're in. So the rest of my poems, I've got like 4 of them, I think. I'm sorry, 5 of them that are short. Bunker poems. This is called January Bunker. History so illuminates that I don't need a flashlight down here, just this old world glow. The Duc de Berry paid for art instead of war. A bright book of hours. It gold-leafed the seasons. Peasant women gave sly looks as they curved down like their sheaves. The burgundy of the book, its bounties resplendent, masked knights turned to land pirates after the king got kidnapped and would not return even when rescued. Other books by clergy recommend ways to rape. Plague ate enemies. The Duke stayed home and read. Behold this book of hours on white vellum. Outside, chaos agents abound. And yet, February bunker. Nothing grows in this season but yearning, but instead of frost or brown patches, I painted a diptych of daffodils. On one panel, I sit as I do here now, only in a field where a heart eats them. On the other, I kneel before David, patron saint of Wales, who holds a pigeon. I shoo away birds with yellow bouquets. I am a Protestant. I don't revere him. Someone pounded on the door this morning. Then I heard a distant scream. Yellow flowers can so cheer up a room. July bunker. The fan oscillates, rustling my pages. They whisper Whitman's fairy-crossed seagulls. They take me back to Brooklyn years ago when I stood in the dark on Seagate Beach, my dress blown against my hot skin. I breathed. The ocean breathed. The man held his thin breath. A neighbor, he hoped against hope, I would love him as myself. But instead, I let a cable clang against a chain link fence. No trespassers, the sign spelled in all caps under the street lamp. I listened to waves drowning out his line. The wind undid words. Down here, the ink remains indelible. Every syllable counts. No nature interrupts their imperatives down here. No trespassers. No trespassers trespass. September bunker. I flip the folio to the man of sorrows of the Duke and Duchess of Savoy. They mutely observe Christ excruciated, wounded, standing on a lower green Alp, a blue chateau behind him, a lake, and behold, Jesus bleeds in all this beauty. The Latin inscription, this can't be right. I think it says, I have lost track of crimes this year, and I will give praise. My God is small, but is aided by my story. No, I never studied Latin formally. I must have it backwards. Who would write that? Before I combination locked myself in here, America packed babies in boxes, wrapped them in foil, and they all wailed. The Dukes of Hazzard and Amarillo flanked them left and right, stared down passively, and blamed the other party for their pain. Lord, I too have lost track of crimes this year. I am buried like Faust in my books, but I sell no souls. My God is not small. He figures prominently in this, my story. And this last poem, December Bunker, I am imagining the cognitive dissonance of the writing and the life of Martha Stewart. December Bunker. One Christmas, I roasted chestnuts in the fireplace with my wonderful husband, Mark. Only I didn't have a fireplace. Mark divorced me. Chestnuts taste like wet cardboard. But there I was, roasting them, and my Mark was out caressing creases and crotches while I shuffled the Nat King Cole carols and watched the white flames making spirits bright. Although it's been said many times as an interrogation alibi in this tin hut, have yourself a merry little whatever you need next, darling. Have yourself a merry contrarian. This bunker is soundproof. What do you need? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. That was great.
Thanks.
All right. Next, we have Gina. Gina Ferrara has several poetry collections. Her latest, Weight of the Ripened, was just released by Dos Madres Press. She teaches at Delgado Community College, curates the Poetry Buffet, a monthly reading series at Ladder Library, and has work forthcoming in the Halcyone Review and the Tar River Poetry Review. Gina?
Thank you, Andrea. I hope everybody can hear me. I am totally old school. I want to say hi to everybody. I feel like I belong on a letter right now. I feel like I'm the size of a postage stamp, and I should just find myself a nice place on an envelope somewhere, upper right corner. Martha, hi. So, and Rachel is here too. So, all right. So regarding the virus, I'm not really having any kind of political response to that yet. I have been really intrigued by the fact that, and I can say this for myself, I've been reading that people are having more vivid dreams. And I think that's probably because we're in a totally different sleep pattern too right now. That has to be it. So I'm going to read kind of 3 poems that have been written since I've been quarantined. They're not political. 2 are actually about my backyard because that seems to be the furthest that I'm going right now. So, all right, a working definition of vivid. All adjectives in narration. Me, nearly histrionic about what I dreamed each morning. When I saw my mother, spatula in hand, her daily acts of scrambling, breaking shells in succession, stirring yolks and whites with a wire whisk, until some degree of frothiness and foam was achieved. Mother, robed in a pastel shade of heather, lavender, rampant across the meadow. Vivid, she always said, and when I asked, I was told vivid meant bright, a green lizard skin seen on lush patio leaves, sour apple skin, emeralds, what comes from prisms. So I absconded, a little thief, minus remorse, seeing my own definition, one shade of sky as the overturned indelible, an hour unhurried, beginning as a spill, ending as a stain. So in our backyard, I've been like a 5-year-old going out to see this. Every day there's this huge beehive that the bees built, and every day it's something new. It's been kind of like one of the things that I've been kind of keeping tally on. And so this is called Sweet Industry. Earlier, I saw the bees, hunched like commas and bent fingers beyond pointing. How they flurried in precipitation that never fell, perpetual state of avalanche aswirl, solid embers from fires unlit, not knowing in time they'd make the soft, pliable solid and viscosity, honey hanged not to be touched, in suspension, constructing, colonizing in a way that curves and does not corner, one humming undulation against the corrugated tin wall. Backyard, New Orleans. And I give homage for obscuring, keeping me hidden, and offering modeled indirect light as a polite suggestion. Back here, it is never about phylum and classification, the learned terms of Latin quickly overtaken by memories, poisonous ivy, oak, and sumac, ever present like tenses of time, the outstretched touches before retracting. Blank vellum, the pliant elephant ears, where dollops of drops appear, then roll as unstrung baubles. How the solids always eclipse the striated, stalks the size of torches only a freeze will quell. The aloe vera, a lover in slant rhyme all over, spiking preemptive before it soothes the singed and scorched. This clarity, this cluster, nameless, reminiscent of stars, slightly drooping in pigments between blue and yellow. And I'll read one more at random from the book. And this is called History. It's kind of, something about my parents before they were divorced. Maybe it was the Spitfire or Triumph, the barely yellow or white car. Something imported, bucket seats with a shift and loaf-sized hump between driver and passenger. Bar in place, the heavy vinyl affixed, protecting my mother's hair. Chiffon scarf forgotten. Top up, blocking glimpses of Orion and the dog star. Or earlier in their history, another car. The Chevy with red seats and no power steering. Sturdier than a tank, a testimony to chrome. Did it matter that humid night, a corona, an unprecedented halo surrounding the moon, when my parents traveled east of Chef Mentor past the Wrigley's and the Lighthouse, 90 miles to hear Ray Charles? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gina.
Yeah.
I love to hear Wrigley's in a poem. So,
First time for everything, right?
All right. Next we have Nicole M. K. Eiden, who is a poet and narrative filmmaker who explores the common challenges and beauty of ordinary life. Her poem Mortgage won 3rd place in the 2016 Women's National Book Association Writing Contest. Originally from Ohio, Nicole co-owns Windowsill Pies, a Southern-style pie and tart company in New Orleans.
That's me. Thanks for having me. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to hear myself read tonight at this time, nothing narrative seemed right. So I picked a few poems that deal with solitude, continuing, and just connecting to things we cannot see. So that's sort of where I was at. Am at is a better way to put that. This first poem is called Loneliness Made Me Walk Back. Towards the house, looking for a pen, this pen, to write about the walk or not walk I was walking. List begins. 2 robins swimming, encircling each other. Dialogue proceeds. The rain has stopped. Other robin sings. I'm clean, free. Freedom. When the muscle between 2 shoulders loses sight of, worry becomes wing, pulling curtain away. Outside the window, not dry after hours of rain, it is human to want April air, not by yourself any longer. It is human to walk into door with finger in own eye, to pull carrot out by the hair, forget it in drawer to rot while you grouse of, fill in. To go miles in distance, but short depth inside. The rock, how we become quiet. Rock with holes, not lacking, but indentation. Distinctive fossils, sculptures of where we come from, are and are going, the rope in a circle, how scary to use the word God. And then I was thinking, I was rereading another little poem I wrote a long time ago, and it just struck me as just very anti-capitalist. So I liked that. It's called Reason Enough. All morning stretched, gray rain through missing leaves, sweet song around trees, getting wet, nested flying, sweet song, single drop slides to collect. I am dry, I am good. And the last one I'm going to read, I've been reading a lot because it just keeps feeling like what I want to hear. When people tell you life is work, do listen and know that there is always the time at the table carving back to show what is there. But notice also who travels with your hand as it uncovers the wood, the words, mystery. The bird flees south, the leaves swirl north. Your body is science. You have researched the dark matter of inception. You believe the stars blow out black hole. Mystery does not hide in these explanations. It is loud in the moving from one ground to a colder one, and then back again to spring. All along, this sibling of science lays bare in the minute creased between your life and that of your parents, between your life and that of your child. And on this winter day, this new year, be reassured that your mind continues to deduce, but more determinedly, be delighted that this same mind is made, remade to hold mystery, a speckled enamel pot surrounded by fire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. That was great. It was interesting too what you said about narrative. Does anyone else feel that way?
I felt like it was like no one wanted to write fiction after Katrina. It was like nonfiction. I just couldn't find narrative as, I mean, I'm not anti-narrative poems of them, but when I was looking at my own work.
It's really interesting. All right. Let's, thank you again, Nicole. Let's go to our next reader, Carolyn, who is an awesome teacher and human being. I speak from experience with the teacher part and human being part. Carolyn Hembree has written 2 poetry collections, Skinny and Rigging a Chevy into a Time Machine and Other Ways to Escape a Plague. She is an associate professor at the University of New Orleans and serves as poetry editor of Bayou Magazine.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate it. And now I kind of am seeing or getting a little bit why people do this. I'm a Luddite and a little bit more than a skeptic of everything with the screens and, you know. So I've done a lot of Zoom for the job, and I've attended a few Zoom readings, but now I kind of get the sense, and I think it's partially because we're a little bit more intimate here, and because I'm kind of listening to some people I know and like, and I'm invested in, and yeah, and who are here in New Orleans. And that's now I'm kind of getting it, like why we need to do this. So thank you for making it possible, and thank you all of you for reading tonight. I'm going to read 2 poems, and the first poem is titled Odalisque of Alabama. Odalisque refers to a painting of a young, scantily clad woman. The odalisque of the poem is the 15-year-old speaker who poses on her grandmother's couch in a picture window. It is November 9th, 1989, and the evening news is, of course, running coverage of the fall of the Berlin Wall. Odalisque of Alabama. Open the great red drapes. 3 dozen brass rings clattering on a brass rod above my grandmother's picture window where I, nearly 16, recline on her plush carved settee, while the Berlin Wall, chunk by chunk, is coming down, says the evening news. Everyone's watching but me, in love with my looks and my ennui. I try one pose, then another. I touch the repaired bullet hole, newer blown sphere inside original glass. One fine morning in the 50s, some neighbor called my grandmother's drapes commie spy flags and fired through this picture window into her living room. At least that's the talk. People are pulling each other through breaks in the wall. Anchor woman, sloping lawn, newly paved streets, vanishing point where night clots, all background to my unruly tomorrows. For now, I'll wear just a splash of clothes and paint my skin paler and paler until my figure becomes indiscernible from this sea, foam lane of cushions. For now, I'll gaze at the repair's trapped bubbles and think, I'll not be burned shut like you. We're seeing armed guards jeered by crowds. What have guns to do with me? Not even that coming spring would put a gun to my head. It would be a knife to my throat, and a boy I knew didn't want my money. I arrange myself before the lit picture window. I hope there's talk. Crowds toss pulverized wool like confetti. The TV's turned down, the room dimmed, the decade almost done. Same make, same hue, so I'm told, as those a neighbor shot through. Yet there is no flaw in these heavy panels. Closing for now. The next and last poem that I'll read is called April 2020, New Orleans. And the epigraph comes from the Canterbury Tales, general prologue, that Ham hath holpen wand that they were sick, who helped them when they were sick. Not big on pilgrimages, yet this fever drifts from house to house. One leaky pirogue, adrift, empty, listing to one side on the bayou. I look inside my neighbor's yellow house. Joy of a yellow house, shades up, rainbows chalked on the walkway under a palm's moving shade. Palm where monk parakeets nest. What bright play. I see my neighbor's breakfast nook, a playpen, a last cold bite. I broke bread with my enemy last night. The rolling violin concert woke me, prone, verb, transitive, to roll the sick onto their stomachs so they breathe. Transitory strings receded down the avenue. Above night transit, lighter now. Night birds sang, yes, we hear you again. I sang too. Mask maker, make me. Not a carnival mask. On one you don't know, you know, until they're in you. Breathy sobriquet, dark alcove, the quarter. No, the other kind of mask, so we breathe for centuries alone. April canopy, April shower, other older Aprils I have known, one that April with. But look, this new April, weeping. She strolls and scrolls news on a screen that lights her mask, a magnolia petal, her hair the wind scrolls. Parish pilgrims arrive on winds, on foot, by car, by bus, by streetcar, to follow her where? To water. Always, which water? Water we reach. We refresh dim screens. We post our stories. Who wins? The benediction's the same. We survive. We dine together again. Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Carolyn. It's always so great to hear you read.
Everybody's work rocked. I am
It's-
edified. I'm entertained. Thank you, everybody. I really loved hearing what you had to say.
Thank you. And I think, I'm not sure if Pam got on, but we do have another reader before Pam, so we'll check in on her. Katheryn. Katheryn Krotzer Laborde's work has appeared in a variety of sites and journals, including Poets and Writers, Callaloo, and Free State Review. She is the author of that other book about the discarded fridges of post-Katrina New Orleans, Do Not Open, and is about to finish a book about Flannery O'Connor. She teaches at Xavier University of New Orleans.
That's my intro. That's it. Hi there. You know, somebody was talking earlier about not, you know, at least not feeling that they could write, she could write narratives at this point. That's basically what I write. And I had held back suggesting I could do this because I do write poetry every now and then, but I don't consider myself a poet. But then when I saw the second call, I said, what the hell? What I wanted to share and what I've actually been working on is I take my Facebook statuses like they are writing exercises, not all the time, but quite often. And, you know, I even tell my students, you know, every time you're writing, you're writing. So, you know, COVID-19, the 19 comes from 2019. And I was just thinking back to 2019 and now as angry as we were and all the terrible things that happened last year, it seems as though it's almost like a time of innocence dealing with what we're dealing with now. So what I'm going to read to you here is, I believe it's you know, 19 from 19 with one to grow on. And these are Facebook posts. January. The radio springs to life with a bit of Kenny Loggins, nudging aside the blue dark of this morning. And it is other mornings I seem to recall with that song. Anonymous mornings from another lifetime. A hand here, a hip there, a face almost forgotten. January 11th. Did the waves of sound wake me, or did I simply wake to it? Whichever the case, I woke up around 2 a.m. to unearthly sounds coming from my backyard. I rose, darted to the kitchen, and looked out to the window to see one or two raccoons cavorting, and another two making the two-backed beast. Wild nights, raccoons mating, raccoons relating. February 5th. As one who does not pray, I admit to pausing for the hospital evening prayer if I happen to be around when it occurs. There's nothing special about the simple delivery unless one considers a 2-minute stream of syllables zooming through after hours air special. And I do. It's not the words that stop me. I don't pay much mind to the content. Rather, it's the moment itself that delivers me somehow to a time when TV stations signed off for the night with a lone voice and the national anthem, followed by the fullness of white noise and the power of night sounds that leads somehow to that inevitable question, okay, so what now? February 12th. Looking through a book for a particular short story, Ripe Figs, I come across a sweet little note from a love I dated some 30 years ago. That relationship, a short story in itself, but one that launched me onto another path. Ripe figs indeed. March 15th. Last night on my way home, I passed by a restaurant called The Salad Station, but I thought the sign said The Salad Situation. Imagine my disappointment when I took that second look. March 18th. It's not uncommon for me to send myself a last-minute email while in bed. These messages are nothing but subject lines that act as next day reminders. It's a good system and it usually works, but there was no way I could have known that writing, quote, Father Mark at 1 o'clock to remind myself to write to Father Mark would lead to me waking up at 6 a.m., wondering what kind of Mark a Father Mark is and remembering that my own father has been dead for 8 years now. April 11th. I learned that a woman I knew years ago, a friend of my friends, left the planet recently. The news of her passing was but another reminder that we simply rent these fleshy shells, don't we, until inevitably we are evicted. May 19th. Sitting here, iced-tea'd and anonymous in a landscape of chairs and tables, of concrete and wind and cars. I will soon open the book I brought along, but the cafe radio is set to songs Kathy really liked in college station, and I find myself very distracted. June 7th, dream. It wasn't enough that I found myself at a singles gathering sponsored by the local Madres synagogue, I'm not Jewish, or that the gathering was some kind of weekly event featuring arts and crafts, or that I didn't particularly want to make the painting of the lantern that was that night's project because, quote, I really don't have wall space for a piece of crap, which I said to Christina, who was also there and also not Jewish, but rather very Catholic and wrapped in a large towel and basking in moonlight as she lounged in the parking lot. It was not enough that I was sassy to Ringo Starr, also not Jewish, who was sitting in a cheap chair that he tipped over and over against the wall, his feet dangling and a plastic cup of beer in his hand. No, I was concerned because I had volunteered to take charge of the group and thought I could maybe get people to write haiku. Maybe. June 13th. So last night I was clearing my inbox of unneeded emails, mostly of the commercial variety, and a few popped up from a former beau. I had held on to these only because I am simply hesitant to delete correspondence. It's the writer in me. I pressed delete. After that, I searched for emails from this man and that and pressed delete, delete, delete. It wasn't so much that I was ready to, but that I'd neglected to when I had been initially ready. July 14th. I was sitting on my back porch gazing at the lower limb of an azalea bush and pondering getting up, grabbing the clippers, and walking across the yard to give the bush a bottom-up trim. But at that moment, a cat that now and then walked through my yard and paused before that very limb and sprayed. And I said, okay, universe, I hear ya. And thus went inside and got back to work. July 16th. It is amazing how much more I can accomplish when I don't have to either, one, prepare for doomsday, or two, put things back to normal after such a preparation. July 27th. So new neighbors are moving in, and at some point I was walking along the side of my house, that side, and I said hi to the cable guy, who then, as I was walking off, asked me a question about the pole behind my shed. And I answered him and added, oh, you know, he can go back there if he wanted to. And he said, no, that's not necessary. He thanked me and added suddenly, in a burst almost, that I have a really beautiful spirit. And I thanked him because I think he really meant it. And on days such as these, I think maybe I actually do. That said, however, I'm still sticking with my Roku. August 27th. But just think how much worse the flash flood would have been had they not removed that car from the underground canal. Glass half full, silver lining, whatever. September 8th. I love watching the birthday greetings pile up on the Facebook pages of the deceased. The sentiments of those who miss the loved ones are indeed beautiful, sometimes heartbreaking. But God help me, the birthday wishes that come from those who have no idea that the person is, well, you know, no longer present tense, are entertaining. Hope you have a good one. Enjoy your day. September 19th. So the other day, a student was visiting during office hours. I mentioned the early, thoughtful birthday gift I had just received in the university mail from a former boyfriend. And she suddenly blurted, wait, you're not married? And I said, no, I'm divorced. And she said, I always thought you were happily married. And I said, well, I'm happily by myself. And she said, well, that's good. Pause. But you look happily married. You don't look divorced. And though I was really curious, I knew better than to pursue that one. October 19th. Here I am on a Saturday night, several hours of work behind me and leftovers whirling in the microwave. How I wish I had Perry Mason to watch tonight, for I confess, I think after all this time I have a crush on him. Oh, to coyly sip coffee with Perry Mason. Oh, to go out for the biggest steak dinner in town with him. To step onto that office balcony together and watch the moonlight bounce off the passing winged fenders. Now, you might say it's not realistic to have a crush on a fictional TV character, to not realize one simply likes the work of the actor who plays him. But I say likes schmikes. I wouldn't have had a chance with Mr. Burr anyway, being that he was, you know, gay and dead. November 1st. Two students of mine, young, beautiful, they both see themselves as poets, were standing just outside the building exit. I could see their faces facing each other as I came down the stairs. Suddenly, those faces disappeared, and in their places was one joined head oscillating wildly in different directions. Oh, young love, hot love, sweet, sticky stream of want it now. I stopped in my tracks and waited for that mad, sudden, wonderful kiss to end. I had time. November 18th. Taking a break from work to take care of a task, I was in my car yesterday waiting at the red light. The car next to mine had good poppy music blaring through open windows, so I opened mine and proceeded to dance in my head. The song had something to do with asking someone to dance with the singer, after all. But then the music stopped. A moment passed, and then another, and then there was a plaintive voice and a wandering piano and pervasive, soul-numbing angst. Oh, woman next to me in your car. Oh, you behind the wheel. What is wrong with you? Seriously, what is wrong? Did someone dump you? Did somebody die? Must you take me down in those dumps with you? December 15th. So the other day, I was to meet a woman at a coffee shop for an interview. She called as I was on my way to say she was there too, and she was near the door. I'm wearing a red cardigan, she said. Oh, I'm wearing red too, I said. Minutes later, I entered in my cardinal-hued cape. I looked to my left, nothing. I looked to my right, saw nothing again until I remembered, yeah, burgundy is indeed a shade of red. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katheryn. Pam isn't here, so we're just gonna have to have her be the first to go on our next reading. I want to thank all of our readers so much. You guys made this amazing, and thank you for bearing with us for the technical difficulties. Pretty much inevitable at this point, but you know, what can you do? I just loved hearing all of you read. Thank you also to Sarah and Teresa, who, you know, I couldn't have done this without them. And yeah.